What's up, thickness? You more than just a snack, sugar. You're the whole buffet.
Carl, your bodyguard looks really large. Look at these dudes. Yes! Oh, Creative Assembly, please, like, come on, guys. You're spoiling us at this point. Not only do we get a Dwarfs rework that I did not expect at all, I also did not expect this OGRE Mercenaries available for every faction in campaign. And a little bit of a funny story, so sit yourself down. Originally, they were not implemented into multiplayer in the early access. I actually taught myself a crash course on Pack File Manager in order to make a mod to add them to a few factions. So this battle was actually fought using my first ever homebrew made mod with myself and Turin as the Dwarfs. Ogres. We've got some ogres here. We're going to take a look at two battles. One today featuring the Empire. The animations evidently still need a little bit of work as the bases are clipping through their own skulls. But anyway, we've got ogres here, folks. Monstrous infantry for the Empire, and for many other factions, there are 4 units of infantry, ogre infantry, plus the Mournfang cavalry. We've got 2 regular ogres here, ogres and ogres with dual weapons, the man-eaters. I did not bring any of in this particular build, but the idea here is they're going to give us a lot of cheap, armor-piercing mass to go up against the dwarfs. Historically, a very tough matchup for the Empire. Turin coming in with Thorek Ironbrow. He's got a bunch of Thunderers, 2 cannons, two Slayers, including the Dragonbacks. Longbeards with great weapons, great choice here. Some miners, no charges, some miners with charges. And yeah, for myself, 4 regular ogres, 4 ogres with dual hand weapons. So let's quickly take a look at the stats here. They are not amazing. I mean, they're pretty comparable to something like animated Hulks, with really good charge though. And all ogres have this ability here, Ogre Charge. I love the naming of this. When attacking braced charge defenders, this unit only loses half its charge bonus as a cannonball sails over their heads. Ooh, near misses for these lads right here. Oh, and that guy gets hit right in the trap. Ah, that's gotta hurt. Anyway, so they actually ignore half of charge defense, right? They still get half of their charge bonus, which is significant. 44 charge is really good. These guys cost 550 points currently. They are now implemented by CA, so the mod is now redundant. But for every faction, they're under the campaign exclusive units, and yeah, 550 points for these guys. I believe it's 700 for the dual hand weapons, which have a slightly lower overall weapon strength, but obviously come with an anti-infantry bonus of +8. Very nice. Yeah, we've also got some chevrons on them. And again, just cheap AP. We've got some swordsmen, a couple of crossbowmen, Franz leading the way with Felix to heal him, an amethyst wizard, a spirit leech cannons that I'm going to slightly forget about, and a couple of hellstorm rocket batteries for target saturation, area denial, whatever you want to call it. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh man, like I said, Creative Assembly is just ridiculously spoiling us at this point, and this makes me think that potentially the pre-order bonus could be Ogre Kingdoms, and that's not, I mean, I thought for sure we'd see Ogre Kingdoms as a full DLC faction for Game 3. This is absolutely not something I would expect, but look at this! Monstrous infantry for the Empire, oh man. And I know for some of the factions it's not super loreful for them to take, like especially the New World factions wouldn't really have much contact with the Ogre Kingdoms. I mean, I guess some of the ogres might try and make their way out across the sea. The man-eaters, as we'll see later, do sort of look like pirates, but they are vulnerable to missiles. No missile block chance on these guys. Not a lot of armor. I mean, handgunners would destroy their armor anyway, but oh yeah, nice, impactful charge animation. And you can see, I mean, charging dwarf warriors who do have charge defense against large, even very tattered as they were, just getting ultimately last samurai'd, and still were able to get a pretty good amount of damage. And here's the big engagement in the center. We've got more ogres charging over on the flanks there. Carl and his brand new bodyguard. Slayers are going to be obviously very dangerous for the ogres here. Rockets continue to saturate, but out on the flanks where I'm able to collapse multiple of these minor units with the great weapons, things are actually going pretty well, all things considered. The Slayers are going to maneuver over here. Let's watch some of these big lads in action. They got their belly plates on. They got all their stuff ready to go. They got their horns. Their Fu Manchu mustaches, top knots looking things. I love it. Absolutely love it. The big dudes. I've been very excited for ogres, I'm not going to lie. maybe one of the factions I was most excited about. Besides Kislev and maybe Tzeentch, like Ogre Kingdoms, they are very much the violent death slapstick of Warhammer 3, in the same vein that Skaven are for Warhammer 2 and Greenskins are for Warhammer 1. Yeah, they're going to be a good time. You won't have to worry about them in ladder, and they probably won't be allowed in tournaments, but I don't know. Maybe we'll develop a supplemental rule set that allows them for at least certain factions in tournaments, or maybe just for everyone. Who knows? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Should I run a tournament where ogres are just allowed? Like, anyone can take ogres? It could be interesting. I mean, I don't think, as we'll discuss later, I don't think they're all super cost-effective, and they are fairly squishy. You can see they're actually all pretty much routed at this point, other than a couple managed to get into the cookie jar a little bit with one of these units, but the Slayers are definitely a problem. And I mean, this is already a pretty tough matchup for the Empire, but I definitely felt like this was better with having the access to the ogres. As an Empire main, I would consider myself, yeah, having access to the ogres would make a huge difference in this matchup specifically, which is a pretty tough matchup historically for the Empire. Honestly, I think if I had stood back and tried to artillery trade with Turin, you know, my artillery is kind of hidden behind the woods here, and I could have just brought my ogres back and just waited as the rockets saturated in, and they actually ended up doing a lot of damage over time. Somebody recently asked me, why don't you see the Sunmaker much? And I mean, by the time you're seeing this, recently I would have been like a week ago, but you don't see the Sunmaker much because the regular ones are just more cost effective, and especially in this new early access patch, they've been cheapened down from 1100 to 1050, which is even better. And as long as they have time to fire, they will absolutely pay for themselves and do some pretty horrendous damage. Not super accurate, but the shots that do land do an insane amount of damage. So things are looking pretty grim for me at this point. We've pretty much lost all of the ogres, so not really the greatest day for them success-wise. But like I said, coming from an Empire main, it definitely felt better. Like, I do think if I would have played slightly better, maybe artillery traded, maybe had the Amethyst Wizard to stand, you know, off station and try and overcast Spirit Leech the cannons for extended cast range, just to, you know, blow up the actual cannon models themselves. You can see there that Spirit Leech does actually blow up one of the cannons, so I think if I had played this a little more patiently, a little smarter, I definitely could have won. And the ogres, I mean, they are a big, big part of that. I think we are maybe going to get a couple of units back, but let's zoom in on the Emperor here. Thorek, I haven't really been highlighting here, but Thorek has been... Turin's been doing a great job keeping Thorek away from the two of these guys, right? Felix and Karl together would definitely beat down Thorek. Thorek's no pushover, though. If he could get one of them by themselves, especially with, you know, his runes supporting himself, he could potentially get some good damage in. But okay, last charge of the ogres, at least for this replay. I do have another replay of ogres to show you. Oh yeah, the big bellies. I love the belly plates too, and their animations. Absolutely amazing. Oh, just like belly out charge. Oh yes. Right on the side of these longbeards. Ooh, brutal attacks. They aren't going to fight for long, but this charge does get some good disruption. Allows the crossbowmen to now stand and fire a bit, perhaps. Let's see what they got. I think we do have some Slayers incoming as well, perhaps. Rockets in the background. What a beautiful game, man. The ogres do flee, but I mean, for how cheap these ones are, they're, again, the damage potential is definitely there. And also, you could make good use of support buffs with them. I mean, I didn't really take any support buffs on France, but like, even like an Archlector, like cheaply buffing them, I think, could be pretty strong, honestly. They are just going to be pretty vulnerable to missiles, and I would imagine the Ogre Kingdoms themselves will probably have some shielded variants of these units that we're seeing here. At least I would hope so, because it definitely would be beneficial. Amethyst Wizard getting caught by a single Slayer here. Oh, a little bit of friendly fire from the crossbows. He's going to rout. Things are still, well, they were still decently close. I actually missed completely Thorek beating down the Emperor. So... good showing for Thorek here on foot, not even on his anvil. Man, those shoulders though, look at those Dawi shoulders just bare to the world. I love his casting animation too. Has to be said. So at this point, just using up the last of the rockets, and once those are done, it is going to be victory for the Dwarfs, more or less. A few more crossbow shots to be done as well, but there you go. So, initial impressions, the two cheap ogre infantry, they're just literally called ogres, I think. Yeah, as we saw there, pretty cost effective. I mean, keep in mind, 550 points for the basic ones, so they don't need to do a lot to pay for themselves, right? That's like almost the same cost as a dryad, right? I think might be exactly, so... I mean, only one of them does pay for themselves, but it definitely felt better, like I said. And if I'd played a little bit smarter, more of them would have survived and done more damage. Could have potentially won. These guys are 700, so one of them pays for themselves there. This one, I think, not quite. So it was pretty decent. Considering it's kind of a first test, we're still getting a feel for them. Definitely seems like would make a difference in some certain matchups if they were allowed in multiplayer. Kind of remains to be seen. The Rockets, though, definitely did a great job. And I definitely should have just stayed back and tried to play off the Rockets, but it would have been a longer, more boring replay, so there you go. Cannons obviously do very well here. Yeah, most of his infantry trade's pretty good. Slayers, yeah, get some really nice value. Actually, not that much stuff pays for itself, weirdly enough. Like one Thunderer, really the cannons were the main thing. Thorek, even not even that much value. It's interesting. Yeah, very, very interesting. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the next replay. We'll look at the Man-Eaters and the Mornfangs. Oh yeah, Ogre Pirates with pistols? I mean, I know they're not technically pirates, but they've chosen to go with this aesthetic for the Man-Eaters, which I am a huge, huge fan of. They've got a great weapon variant currently, and the sword and pistol variant, and then, oh yeah, Mornfangs. Look at these hulking monstrosities! Oh yeah. Big boys on big boars. 90 armor, only 9 unit models, but 120 weapon strength, 66 charge. They're almost more like dragon ogres, or you know, they're gonna sort of like the bear cavalry of Kislev are gonna be very low model count but very high damage. Pretty good HP per model as well. Again, very comparable to minotaurs. Speaking of minotaurs, it looks like they've traded Malagor here has traded all his minotaurs out for ogres. We've got a couple more ogres with dual weapons, the man-eaters with pistols, Bestigor up front, raiders. And Flying Malagor now cackling up in the air, gleefully mocking Big Bird as he is still stuck to the ground with his useless wings. Dragon Ogre Shaggoth here. We've got some Warhounds, some Horsemen, Chaos Spawn, yeah, some Chaos Marauders as well. So the Spawn should do pretty well here. They have very high weapon strength to just beat down whatever the Beastmen can bring to the table. Mornfangs, though, do have 90 armor, 66 charge, 120 weapon strength. We'll see. The great weapons also could be very good going up against the Shaggoth. I'm going to go ahead and charge into the side of these Bestigor here. And the Man-Eaters respond. Big Bird also doing a little bit of a hit and run as the Mornfangs then go after him. He's not going to take too much damage there. I do want to disengage, and yeah, the Spawn coming in. That's not going to be a very cost-effective trade for the Man-Eaters. They are 1,200 points, I believe, for the Man-Eaters, both types, and I think the Mornfang Cavalry might be the same, or even 1,300, but I'm immediately going to swarm in with some chaff, just because their most obvious weakness is low model count. So we're throwing some axes from the Horsemen here, and also following up with just massive hounds. That's going to get into the cookie jar, and so to speak, just start to wreck shop. But both the Man-Eaters come to play, and a Cygor also comes to play, as does the Shaggoth. Bunch of Spawn. We got Ungors running through here. We got Marauders running here. Just absolute true anarchy, as Chaos loves it. You know, Beastmen versus Chaos. Very appropriate. Lots of stuff going to get terrified on both sides, but the Mornfangs actually do pull out of there. And, yeah, the Man-Eaters here with the Shaggoth are going to potentially get a good engagement, but a nasty final transmutation from Big Bird. Going to hit the dual weapons. The Man-Eaters also take a pretty significant amount of damage, so I'll admit that was a little rude. That was a little distasteful, but sometimes you gotta, you know, you want to test something out. You gotta test it out against what you think might be good against it. And to be honest, I would take final transmutation against the Beastmen anyway right now. Yeah, anyway. As it is, we managed to break the Man-Eaters. They may come back. They still got 7 unit models. The other Man-Eaters here, the pistols, are fighting admirably in the front line. From what I've seen, their pistols don't penetrate, which is a little bit unfortunate. They do a lot of damage, but a lot of the damage is wasted against infantry-type targets because it doesn't, like, hit multiple unit models, right? Very high individual missile damage, and they'd probably be really good shooting at cavalry. Single entities as well. It's just the cost makes them a little bit prohibitive. We can compare them in the end, and after this battle, we will do some comparisons for all of the Ogre units, so you guys just get a feel for where they're at in terms of power level and cost. But yeah, Ogres fighting Spawn here. Gonna get a Searing Doom, which will actually do a pretty solid amount of damage to them. A little bit of Ungor Raider fire as well. Might be doing some friendly fire, but this is what everyone wants to see, right? Chaos Spawn fighting Ogres. This is Monstrous infantry mash. This is what Ogres is going to be all about. And very likely the Ogre Kingdoms themselves obviously will have a roster that's designed kind of to support Monstrous infantry. I imagine they'll probably have some Goblin Chaff of some kind, maybe some Hobgoblins, some sort of, potentially some Black Orc units as well. We'll see, I'm not really sure. Shaggoth, though, does get a little bit caught out here, and the Man-Eaters actually do come back, and this is where they get a really good engagement. Man-Eaters, anti-large, AP, as you would expect from a great weapon type unit. Again, pretty comparable to Minotaurs, which a little bit odd for the Beastmen to try and take them. We mostly just took them for fun here, right? We're trying to show off some of the new stuff. So Flying Malagor, plus the Ogres, they're making a stand here. The Cygor summon does get rid of the Shaggoth, so things are looking okay. Malagor's forces are somewhat falling apart, but he's still got literally 2 Man-Eater pistols here. He's got a handful of Bestgor Herd that are fighting mostly just Marauders at this point, although they are about to get rear charged by some Spawn. And of course, Big Bird gonna throw some hot lead on him. Beautiful Searing Doom. Still have quite a few Horsemen left as well, so yeah, things are looking okay. But Big Bird getting tangled up with the Cygor here. I don't necessarily want that. I'm faster as well, so I can probably just get away with Big Bird. Mornfangs do come back. They haven't really done much. Mornfangs, even though they have 90 armor, in the couple battles I've played with them, they don't seem to be very tanky at all. Their HP is relatively low for the cost. Again, we'll do some comparisons after the fact, but yeah. Horsemen charging in. The pistols are going to move in as well. Yes, yes, wave your pistol around in the air. The question is, are you going to slap? Ooh, nice little attack animation there. A couple of the Mornfangs do charge in as well. Look at how much they tower over the Marauder Horsemen. Like, that's a regular dude on a cavalry. Granted, Chaos Ponies are a little small, right? But that's just ridiculous. Gives you a sense of scale here on how huge these Mornfang cavalry are. I mean, they are certainly awesome. Cool factor is 11. They're not super cost effective right now for what they're costed. I know, again, they're not really meant and designed for multiplayer. It's more of just a fun thing. If you want them, they're there. But let's see. Malagor. Haha, again, just cackling at Big Bird as he flies in the air like, no, your useless wings. And, oh, Big Bird's pouting. Oh, poor guy. He's all sad. Yeah, he deserves it, though, probably. Anyway. These Ungors also probably deserve this, just getting absolutely collapsed by the horde of the Undivided. Everwatcher, I should say. Is the Everwatcher Undivided? I guess he's trying to take the whole title of Everchosen from Archaon. I guess that's sort of the narrative, right? Spoiler alert, if you've never played the Chaos campaign, I guess. Man-Eaters come back, though. And Malagor actually going to rout the Shaggoth here. Just his mere presence, something wicked this way comes, able to rout the Shaggoth here. So Big Bird going to pull back. I don't want to sacrifice him to the Man-Eaters if I don't have to. Because I actually think that if Big Bird were to die here, I would definitely lose. And believe it or not, I think Big Bird might be in more danger than what you may realize. I mean, Malagor has a 55 charge bonus, 400 weapon strength. Like, he can actually get in there and get some pretty good damage. The Man-Eater's also anti-large. I'm going to throw down one Searing Doom because it really won't do much damage to Big Bird at all. And it might hit a couple of these guys. Actually staggers that guy out of the area of effect, which is fine. The last Spawn's going to come rear charge him. And nice Penumbral Pendulum. Does some pretty good damage. Maybe Stern should have waited slightly longer on that. He could have got a few more unit models, but still, look at this. Big Bird starts taking some hits, and it all comes down to kind of RNG. We'll keep the health pools up so you guys can see. Big Bird actually getting dangerously low here. That clutch standard die, putting him up to 64 melee defense. And he gets a few successive hits on Malagor, suddenly things turn around, but notice how the balance power was like heavily in my favor, swung all the way back to even, and even still, I mean, Malagor not going quietly into that good night. I honestly think Turin, if he had got good RNG there at the end, he could have potentially beat me. Like, honestly. If Malagor had come in and finished off Big Bird, I think probably a lot of my stuff just routes at that point due to leadership penalties. It was literally all just Marauders and Hounds and stuff, so not like it's that great a leadership. But anyway, great game to Turin. We've really had some awesome ones in this early access. And yeah, the Ogres, the Man-Eater dual weapons absolutely did pay for themselves. They're really the only higher tier Ogres that did. We can take a look at the cost there in just a minute. Centaurs, I must have completely forgot about them. My apologies. They were also there. Some Ogre dual weapons. The Ungor Raiders here. Beskor Herd do quite well. Beskor actually I'm really liking right now. Malagor also awesome up in the air. I think against Chaos specifically, I mean, he's much faster than Mancores, and you can also take your own Mancores now to defend yourself. You know, Harpies and other things. He's relatively safe up in the air, it seems like, against Warriors of Chaos, unless you screw up and let him take a face full of Javelins. But, like, again, he's fast enough to easily get away from Chaos Javelins. So, is Malagor now going to be the meta choice against Warriors of Chaos? I think actually maybe so. Potentially something that needs to be looked at. I do think Taurox will be very good here as well. Obviously, Morgur's good all the time still. But anyway. Yeah, in terms of the rest of the army, not great for me. I mean, Horsemen do a pretty good job. The Spawn, some of them pay for themselves, some of them not. The Shaggoth's more a distraction piece than anything. Hounds are awesome, though. And Big Bird, of course. Terror in the night. But let's just go ahead and talk about Ogres. And the nice thing is, literally any single faction has them. So here, I was just grabbing a screenshot from Nolosi, actually. And we've got Ogres. 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 For Dark Elves, we've got Ogres for Norska. Not that you would really... I mean, I guess it's even cheaper Monstrous Infantry if you just want to go, like, full-on Monstrous Infantry spam. Like, oh, Ogres. Ogres coming out my ears. And then guess what? I can also take Ice Trolls. This is a very Throg army. Yeah, somebody needs to try this. Someone tell Slade X. I think he's currently away right now, but... Slade, please come back in one piece so that we can... have some fun with this. Anyway, yeah, so literally any faction. I mean, for several factions that don't have Monstrous Infantry, like High Elves, Dark Elves, you know, Empire, Bretonia, right? All of a sudden, wow, look at this, Ogres. And actually, Ogres might make a Grail Relic decent, because it'll give them immune to psychology and also give them a little bit of extra leadership, plus 12 leadership, which is something that, I mean, the regular Ogres, they all have 60 leadership. The Man-Eaters, I guess, have 80. 60 leadership on the Mournfang Cav. Okay, I guess they're only 1,200, which does make a little more sense than, like, they're not super high tier, but I guess the Man-Eaters then just barely pay for themselves. The pistols, I don't think are functioning correctly right now, or necessarily as intended. I have gotten a really hard time making them work, which is unfortunate. On paper, they look great, right? So let's actually do some comparisons. I know I talked about that, but let's start with animated hulks, because the basic Ogres, I mean, the cheapest Monstrous Infantry, I believe right now, I might be wrong about this, I'd have to double check, but animated hulks at 750 are kind of the closest thing I can think of. And actually, they're not that far off in terms of stats. You can see the Ogres significantly less weapon strength. The animated hulks have the same weapon strength as Minotaurs, which is kind of insane. And slightly less stats, but much better charge. Obviously, they're not undead, better leadership, better speed as well, much faster at 54 speed. And they've got that Ogre charge ability, so really their charge bonus kind of gets magnified that much more. Anti-infantry bonus, of course, on the dual weapons. And keep in mind, they're also 18 unit models rather than 12. So they do have an additional 6 unit models to kind of make up for that difference in weapon strength. So yeah, I mean, honestly, very comparable to animated hulks. Animated hulks are not that amazing of a unit, but they're okay. You know, they're decent, and especially given that you can take them for even cheaper in the case of the Ogres, I do think these two are going to be very cost-effective. The Man-Eaters, now is when we come to Minotaurs with great weapons. So 1350 for Minotaurs with great weapons, 1400 for Man-Eaters. What do you get? Well, Man-Eaters have a lot more health. Wow, 1100 more HP is actually pretty good. They are slightly slower, and no Woodsman trait, but little bit better leadership, armor, a little bit better melee stats, and a little bit better charge. Of course, they got ogre charge as well, so it does appear, in comparison to minotaurs with great weapons at least, that the man-eaters with great weapons are pretty good. That being said, minotaurs with great weapons are not, in my opinion, that great of a unit, and I haven't seen any changes, really, with the Beastmen update. A little sad. In order to make them good. I mean, obviously, in Torox's army, they're going to be very scary because of his lord buffs, I think. But anyway, yeah, very comparable unit. Still not that great of a unit to begin with, but man-eaters are also immune to psychology, which is nice. Definitely benefit in their favor. So I would say very much on par, if not slightly better than minotaurs with great weapons. The pistols, best comparison I can think of as a unit I covered recently, Sepulchral Stalkers. And yes, Tomb Kings can take them too. So if we have a comparison here, extra 200 points for the Ogre Man-Eaters. Man-Eaters do have 2,000 more HP, 40 less armor though. They're not undead, they have immune to psychology, decent leadership, both cause fear, interestingly enough. And a Man-Eater's much faster. Their missile damage is significantly less, but they do have longer range and a little bit more ammunition, actually double the ammunition. So potential DPS output on paper is really good, but again, the explosion difference here, I guess there is no explosion damage on the Sepulchral Stalkers. But again, I need to do some testing with the pistols. I just don't think, like, I haven't seen their missile DPS to really be that great, even though it looks like it should be. I don't know. I need to, like I said, I need to do some more testing. Yeah, they all have much better melee stats than the Sepulchral Stalkers, but no charge defense and no anti-large. Yeah, I mean, for 200 extra points, you do sort of get what you pay for, but the lesser armor is a little bit of an issue, even with the extra HP, for sure. And then the Mourn Fangs. Again, we kind of go back to Beastmen somewhat. Mourn Fangs, or you know what, actually, maybe a better comparison would be more a cavalry-type unit. Dragon Ogres, perhaps. I mean, 75 speed Mourn Fangs are pretty fast. They're also significantly cheaper than Dragon Ogre, so maybe the Minotaur comparison is, again, the best one. Yeah, we'll compare to the Shielded Minotaurs. 50 points difference. The Shielded Minotaurs also have the best armor, but have a missile block chance, which the Ogres actually do not have any shielded units. Literally almost the same HP, but spread across 3 less unit models. They have more HP per model, but still relatively squishy. Low melee defense and low attack. Great charge bonus and great weapon strength, but Mournfangs also don't seem to have the Ogre charge ability. It looks like it's only on the Ogre infantry, so in reality that charge may not be as impactful as the charge of other Ogre units. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Kind of remains to be seen whether that's an oversight or perhaps something they may add in at a later date for the Mournfangs, but regardless, yeah, these kind of in summary, I guess, the lower tier ones, the regular ogres with dual weapons, would be pretty cost effective. Man-eaters would be good in the right situation. The ogre pistols, I still need to figure out where their place is. Maybe for a faction like Vampire Counts that can't take any missiles, could get some SCM stopping power out of these, but I don't know. Again, I need to do some testing with them and see. Mournfangs, again, if you're like Dowie that don't have any cavalry at all, maybe this offers some use to you, but I do think they're a little overpriced for their performance. Granted, very small sample size so far, but I do need to play some more with them. Hopefully we'll get some more battles upcoming soon, but if you like this, if you enjoyed this, like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification every time I upload a new video. You'll be notified. Thanks again. See you next time.